The workshop was silent except for the hum of overhead fans and the distant pop of fireworks. Ryan Miller looked up from the half-sanded cabinet to find Claire Bennett standing in the doorway, backlit by string lights, her voice barely above a whisper when she asked, "Would you sleep with me?" 4 words that turned his blood to ice. 4 words from his best friend's little sister. 4 words that could destroy everything he'd built as a single father trying to do right by his daughter. 4 words he never saw coming on a summer night that was supposed to be about friendship, not temptation. If you want to see how Ryan handles the most dangerous question of his life, stay with me until the end. And please, hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. The Sanders had been running for 3 hours straight. Ryan Miller's shoulders ached in that good way that came from honest work, the kind that let him think while his hands stayed busy. Sawdust coated his forearms, turning the dark hair there blonde under the warm glow of Edison bulbs that Marcus had strung across the ceiling of his workshop. Outside, the July night pressed humid and heavy against the windows, but inside, with the fans going and classic rock playing low from the paint-splattered speaker in the corner, it felt like a refuge. Ryan ran his palm across the cabinet door he'd been working on, feeling for rough spots. Smooth, clean, ready for stain. He allowed himself a small smile of satisfaction. This was Marcus's project, a custom entertainment center for some client in the Heights, but Ryan had volunteered to help finish it. That's what friends did. That's what best friends did. And Marcus Bennett had been exactly that since their freshman year of high school, back when Ryan was the new kid with the chip on his shoulder and Marcus was the only one who looked past it. 17 years of friendship. Countless late nights like this one, working side by side, talking about everything and nothing. Marcus had been there when Ryan's world fell apart at 23, when Vanessa walked out 3 months after their daughter was born, leaving nothing but a note on the kitchen counter and an empty closet. Marcus had helped him move into his first real apartment, had shown up with pizza and beer, and didn't ask questions when Ryan couldn't talk yet. Had been the godfather at Emma's baptism, had never missed one of her birthdays, had taught Ryan how to braid hair when Emma was 4 and obsessed with Frozen. Some friendships were circumstantial. This one was foundational. Ryan glanced at his phone. Almost 11. He should probably pack it in soon, head home before the babysitter fell asleep on his couch again. Mrs. Chen from 4B was reliable, but she was also 72 and had dozed off during the last Marvel movie he'd tried to watch with Emma. Not that he minded. Emma had been asleep by 8:30 anyway, exhausted from swim lessons and the summer heat. He was reaching for the power switch on the sander when he heard the door. Not the main garage door that rolled up with a mechanical groan, but the side entrance that connected to Marcus's house, the one that family used. Ryan looked up, expecting to see Marcus returning from his date with Sarah, probably grinning like an idiot because things were getting serious, and everyone could tell he was already mentally picking out rings. But it wasn't Marcus. Claire Bennett stood in the doorway, one hand still on the knob, the other holding what looked like a bottle of wine. She was wearing cut-off denim shorts and an oversized gray t-shirt that slipped off one shoulder, her dark hair pulled back in a messy ponytail that had started to come loose. Her feet were bare, toenails painted a deep red that matched the wine label. Ryan straightened, suddenly aware of how sweaty and covered in sawdust he was. "Hey, Claire, Marcus isn't here. He's out with Sarah." "I know." Her voice was quiet, almost lost under the fan noise. "I came to see you." Something in her tone made Ryan's instincts prickle with warning, the same way they did when Emma said she felt fine but wouldn't meet his eyes. He'd known Claire since she was 15, a high school sophomore with braces and an attitude, always trailing after her older brother and his friends, simultaneously annoyed by them and desperate to be included. Now she was 27, working as a graphic designer downtown, living in Marcus's guest house while she saved up for her own place after her breakup last year. A breakup that had been ugly. Ryan didn't know all the details. Marcus got tight-lipped when it came to his sister's pain, but he knew enough. 3 years with a guy who'd treated her like an accessory, who'd made her feel small, who'd cheated, and then somehow made her feel like it was her fault for not being enough. Ryan had wanted to drive to that guy's apartment and break his jaw. Marcus had actually tried. It took both their dads to talk him down. "You okay?" Ryan asked carefully, turning off the sander completely and setting it aside. He grabbed a rag from the workbench and wiped his hands, though it barely made a dent in the sawdust coating his skin. Claire stepped further into the workshop, closing the door behind her with a soft click. She set the wine bottle on the nearest surface without looking at it, her eyes fixed on Ryan with an intensity that made his chest tighten. "I need to ask you something," she said. "Okay." Ryan leaned against the workbench, trying to project calm, even though something felt off about this whole situation. The workshop suddenly felt smaller, the air thicker. "What's going on?" Claire crossed her arms, then uncrossed them, then shoved her hands into her back pockets. The movement made her shirt slip further off her shoulder, revealing the strap of a black sports bra. She was nervous, Ryan realized, really nervous. "You can talk to me," he said gently, "whatever it is." She laughed, but it came out sharp and brittle. "Can I? Because what I want to ask is probably going to make you hate me." "I've known you for 12 years, Claire. I'm not going to hate you." "You say that now." She took a breath, held it, then let it out in a rush. "Do you think I'm attractive?" Every alarm bell in Ryan's head started ringing at once. He kept his expression neutral, his voice steady. "I think that's not really a question I should answer." "Why not?" "I'm not asking if you want to date me. I'm just asking if you think I'm attractive. Yes or no?" Ryan rubbed the back of his neck, leaving a streak of sawdust in his hair. This felt like a trap, but not a malicious one. More like Claire was testing something, trying to prove a point to herself that Ryan didn't understand yet. "You're Marcus's sister," he said carefully, "and you're dealing with some heavy stuff from your last relationship. So if you're asking because you need validation, I'm telling you right now, you don't need it from me or anyone else. You're smart, talented, and yeah, you're attractive. But your worth isn't determined by whether guys notice you." "That's a very dad answer," Claire said, but there was no mockery in it, just sadness. "I am a dad." "I know. I've watched you with Emma. You're good at it." She moved closer, past the table saw, past the stack of lumber Marcus had delivered last week, close enough that Ryan could smell her perfume. Something light and floral that didn't match the heaviness of the moment. "You're good at a lot of things, actually. You're patient. You're kind. You actually listen when people talk. You don't make promises you can't keep." "Claire." Derek never listened. Her voice cracked on her ex's name. 3 years, and I don't think he ever really heard me. Not about the things that mattered. And when he cheated, he said it was because I was too frigid, too in my head. Like it was my fault he went looking somewhere else. Ryan's jaw tightened. "Derek was an asshole who didn't deserve you. You know that, right?" "Intellectually, sure." Claire looked down at her bare feet against the concrete floor. "But knowing something and believing it are different things. For a year now, I've been trying to figure out if he was right. If there's something wrong with me. If I'm broken somehow." "You're not broken." Ryan said it firmly, like a fact, because it was. "How do you know?" Claire looked up, and Ryan saw tears threatening at the corners of her eyes. "How do you know when I can't even figure it out myself?" "Because broken people don't ask these questions. They don't do the work. They don't show up at their brother's workshop at 11 at night trying to understand themselves better." Ryan softened his voice, trying to reach through whatever wall her ex had built around her heart. "You're healing, Claire. That's different from being broken." She was quiet for a long moment, just looking at him with those dark eyes that were too much like Marcus's for Ryan's comfort. Then she said, so quietly he almost didn't hear it over the fans, "Would you sleep with me?" Time stopped. The fans kept turning. The fireworks still popped in the distance, the neighborhood's annual 4th of July overflow stretching into the following week. The Edison bulbs still glowed warm and golden. But Ryan felt like someone had dumped ice water down his spine, freezing him in place. "What?" It came out hoarse. "I need to know." Claire's voice was steady now, almost clinical, like she'd rehearsed this. "I need to know if it was me, if Derek was right, if I'm actually capable of—" She gestured vaguely. "I trust you. You're safe. You wouldn't hurt me or use it against me later. So I'm asking, would you sleep with me? Just once. Just to help me figure this out." Ryan's mind was racing, crashing through a dozen different responses, none of them adequate. This was Claire, Marcus's baby sister, the girl who used to complain about her geometry homework while Ryan and Marcus played video games in the basement. The woman who'd cried on his shoulder at her college graduation because her parents were getting divorced and everything felt uncertain. Family. She was family, and she was asking him to cross a line that would destroy everything. No. He said it firmly, but gently, the same tone he used when Emma asked for something he couldn't give her. I'm not going to do that. Claire flinched like he'd slapped her. See, I knew it. There is something wrong with me. Even you don't. Stop. Ryan pushed off the workbench and closed the distance between them, but he didn't touch her. He kept his hands at his sides, even though every instinct screamed to offer comfort. You're not hearing me, Claire. I'm saying no because it would be wrong. Not because there's anything wrong with you, but because what you're asking for isn't what you actually need. How would you know what I need? Anger flashed across her face, hot and defensive. Because I recognize what you're doing. You're trying to prove something to yourself using someone else's body. You're trying to fix what Derek broke by confirming that you can still be wanted. But Claire... Ryan made sure she was looking at him, really looking. If I said yes right now, if I took you up on this offer, all it would prove is that you were right to doubt yourself. Confusion replaced the anger. That doesn't make sense. It makes perfect sense. You're asking me to treat you like a means to an end, like a problem to be solved instead of a person to be valued. And if I agreed, I'd be confirming exactly what Derek taught you, that your worth is tied to whether someone wants to sleep with you, that you're a body first and a person second. Ryan's voice roughened with emotion. You deserve so much better than that. You deserve someone who sees all of you, the brilliant designer who sent me that logo mock-up for my side business without being asked, the sister who drove 3 hours to surprise Marcus on his birthday, the woman who volunteers at the animal shelter even though she's allergic to cats. You deserve someone who wants to know your dreams and your fears and your favorite food and the story behind that scar on your knee. Someone who earns the privilege of your trust and your body by showing up for your heart first. Claire's face crumpled. The tears she'd been holding back broke free, sliding down her cheeks in the golden light. I don't know how to believe that anymore. I know. And Ryan did know. He knew what it felt like to have someone you loved treat you like you were disposable. Vanessa had done that to him, had walked away from their daughter without looking back, and it had taken years for Ryan to stop wondering what was so fundamentally wrong with him that even the mother of his child couldn't stay. But sleeping with someone who isn't in love with you won't help you believe it again. It'll just make it harder. You're not in love with me, Claire said, and it wasn't quite a question. Ryan hesitated. He could lie. He could tell her she was just Marcus's sister and nothing more, could draw that boundary line in bold, permanent marker. But she'd asked for honesty, and she deserved it, even if the truth was complicated. I think you're an incredible woman, he said carefully. I think any guy who gets to love you for real is going to be the luckiest man alive. But what I feel for you right now, in this moment, with you asking me this question, he shook his head. That's not love, Claire. That's just attraction mixed with concern. An attraction without foundation is just chemistry. It burns hot and fast and it doesn't leave anything solid behind. What if I don't want solid? Claire's voice was almost pleading now. What if I just want to feel something other than broken for one night? You'd regret it in the morning. Ryan said it with absolute certainty. And more importantly, I'd regret it because I'd know I'd taken advantage of your pain instead of helping you through it. Taking advantage? Claire laughed bitterly. I'm literally offering. How is that taking advantage? Because consent isn't just about saying yes. It's about being in a place where you can actually make that choice clearly, without your judgment clouded by trauma or self-doubt or the desperate need to prove something. Ryan ran a hand through his sawdust-covered hair. You're not in that place right now, Claire. You're hurt. And I won't be someone who uses your hurt for my own gratification, no matter how willing you think you are. Claire wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly looking smaller, younger. So what am I supposed to do? Just keep feeling like this? Just keep wondering if Derek was right? No. You're supposed to heal. Actually heal. Not just cover up the wound with temporary fixes. Ryan wanted to reach for her hand, but didn't trust himself to touch her at all right now. You're supposed to find a good therapist if you haven't already. You're supposed to spend time with people who value you, your brother, your friends, your family. You're supposed to work on your art and your career and the things that make you feel alive for reasons that have nothing to do with male validation. And eventually, when you're ready, you're supposed to meet someone who's willing to earn your trust instead of expecting you to hand it over because you're scared of being alone. And what if that never happens? The question was small, afraid. Then you'll still be whole. Because your wholeness doesn't depend on someone else choosing you. It depends on you choosing yourself. Ryan finally let himself move closer, just close enough that she could see his face clearly in the warm light. I know that's not what you want to hear right now. I know you want a quick fix, something that'll make you feel better tonight. But I care about you too much to give you something that'll hurt you worse tomorrow. Claire was quiet for a long time, just crying silently, while Ryan stood there feeling helpless and horrible and certain he was doing the right thing, even though it felt awful. Outside, another round of fireworks went off, the booms rattling the windows slightly. Someone's dog started barking in the distance. I feel so stupid, Claire finally said, her voice thick with tears. Coming here like this, asking you something so... Don't. Ryan cut her off gently. Don't make yourself smaller for being vulnerable. It took courage to come here and ask for what you thought you needed, even if it wasn't the right thing. That's not stupid. That's just human. Does Marcus know? Panic flashed across her face. Oh God, are you going to tell Marcus? Ryan considered it. Marcus was his best friend, and keeping secrets from him felt wrong on a fundamental level. But this wasn't his secret to tell. This was Claire's moment of vulnerability, and exposing it without her permission would violate the trust she'd placed in him by asking at all. Not unless you want me to, he said. But Claire, you should probably talk to him. Not about this specifically, but about how you're doing. He loves you. He wants to help. Let him. He'll just worry. He's been worrying for a year already. That's what big brothers do, and that's what best friends do. Let the people who love you carry some of the weight. Ryan grabbed the clean towel he kept hanging on a hook by the sink and handed it to her. You don't have to go through this alone. Claire took the towel and wiped her face, smearing mascara slightly, but not seeming to care. When she looked at him again, some of the desperation had faded from her eyes, replaced by exhaustion and something that might have been relief. Thank you, she said quietly, for saying no, for not taking advantage, even though I basically served it up on a silver platter. You're worth more than silver platters and midnight propositions, Ryan said. Don't forget that. She nodded, though he wasn't sure she believed him yet. That was okay. Belief took time. He knew that better than most. Claire moved toward the door, then paused with her hand on the knob. Ryan, for what it's worth, I think Emma's really lucky to have a dad like you. The comment hit him square in the chest, warming something that had been cold since the moment she'd asked her question. Thanks, Claire. She slipped out the side door, leaving the wine bottle behind on the workbench. Ryan stared at it for a long moment, then picked it up and read the label. Good wine. Expensive. The kind you brought when you were trying to impress someone or nerve yourself up for something difficult. He tucked it into the cabinet under the sink where Marcus kept his painting supplies. Claire could retrieve it later if she wanted, or not. Either way, it didn't belong in this moment anymore. Ryan looked around the workshop, at the half-finished entertainment center, at the sawdust coating every surface, at the tools he'd need to clean and put away before he left. Normal things, solid things, things that made sense in a world that had just tilted sideways for a few dangerous minutes. His phone buzzed, a text from Marcus. Date went amazing, might have said the L word. Don't wait up, heading to Sarah's. Lock up when you're done? Ryan typed back. Congrats, man. Workshop's secure. Talk tomorrow. He didn't mention Claire. That conversation needed to happen in person, if it happened at all. Instead, Ryan spent the next 20 minutes cleaning up, putting tools back in their designated spots, sweeping sawdust into neat piles, checking that all the power tools were unplugged. Routine, familiar, safe. The kind of work that let his mind process what had just happened. Claire had asked him to sleep with her. Marcus's little sister. The girl who'd crashed their movie nights and stolen their pizza and rolled her eyes at their stupid jokes. The woman who'd been broken by someone who didn't deserve her trust and was now trying to put herself back together using whatever materials she could find, even if they were the wrong ones. And Ryan had said no. Not because he wasn't tempted. He was human, and Claire was beautiful, and the offer had been direct and clear. But because temptation without wisdom was just destruction in a prettier package. Because some lines existed for good reasons. Because being a good man meant making hard choices when easy ones were available. Because he'd meant what he said. She deserved better. Better than a pity encounter with her brother's best friend in a sawdust-covered workshop while she was still bleeding from wounds someone else had inflicted. Better than using her body to patch holes in her self-worth. Better than settling for scraps when she was worthy of a feast. Ryan finished sweeping, dumped the sawdust in the trash, and turned off the Edison bulbs one by one until only the fluorescent overheads remained. The workshop looked different in that harsh light, less romantic, more industrial. Real. He grabbed his keys and his phone, set the alarm, and locked the side door behind him. The summer night hit him like a wall of humidity, thick enough to taste. His truck was parked in the driveway next to Marcus's Jeep, covered in a fine layer of pollen that glowed yellow under the streetlights. Ryan climbed in, started the engine, and let the AC blast for a minute before pulling out. The digital clock on the dashboard read 11:47. Mrs. Chen would definitely be asleep by now. As he drove through the quiet neighborhood toward his apartment across town, Ryan thought about Emma, about the kind of man he wanted to be for her, not just as her father, but as her example of what men should be. How could he teach her that she deserved respect and genuine care if he couldn't demonstrate it himself? How could he tell her that her worth wasn't tied to her body if he acted like other women's worth was? Fatherhood had taught him that integrity wasn't about the big dramatic moments. It was about the small choices made when no one was watching, when doing the right thing cost you something, when the easy path and the good path diverged and you had to choose which one to walk. Tonight, in a workshop that smelled like sawdust and ambition, Ryan had chosen. And even though it hurt, even though part of him wondered if he'd just made everything more complicated, he knew he'd made the right call. Because some questions couldn't be answered with a yes or a no. They could only be answered with truth, even when the truth was hard to hear. Ryan pulled into his apartment complex parking lot and killed the engine. Through the window of his second-floor unit, he could see the blue flicker of the TV. Mrs. Chen always left on. Emma would be asleep in her room, probably sprawled diagonal across her bed with her favorite stuffed dolphin clutched to her chest, completely unaware that her dad had just navigated one of the more dangerous conversations of his adult life. That was how it should be. Kids were supposed to be protected from adult complications, allowed to sleep soundly while their parents made the hard choices. Ryan climbed the stairs, unlocked his door as quietly as possible, and stepped into the familiar chaos of his home. Emma's drawings covering the fridge, her backpack dumped by the door, her sneakers creating a tripping hazard in the entryway. Mrs. Chen was indeed asleep on the couch, her reading glasses askew on her face. The TV was showing some late-night talk show on mute. He gently woke her, paid her for the evening, and walked her to the door with quiet thank yous. Then he checked on Emma, diagonal across the bed, just as predicted, and pressed a kiss to her forehead before retreating to his own room. Ryan stripped off his sawdust-covered clothes and stepped into the shower, letting the hot water wash away the physical evidence of the evening. But the emotional residue remained, circling his thoughts like water down a drain. Had he done the right thing? Absolutely. Was it going to make things weird with Claire? Probably. Would Marcus ever find out? Maybe, maybe not. Did any of that matter compared to the simple fact that he'd honored Claire's worth even when she couldn't? No. Ryan dried off, pulled on sleep pants, and collapsed into bed. His phone sat on the nightstand, dark and silent. No messages from Claire, no crisis, no fallout yet. He set his alarm for 6:30. Emma had swim lessons at 8, and he needed to prep breakfast and pack snacks and find her goggles, which had mysteriously vanished from the designated goggle spot again, and closed his eyes. Sleep didn't come easy. His mind kept replaying the conversation, analyzing his words, wondering if he could have said something better, or kinder, or more helpful. Wondering if Claire was okay, if she'd made it back to the guest house safely, if she was crying or angry or relieved, wondering what tomorrow would bring. But underneath all the wondering and worrying, there was something solid, something certain. The knowledge that when faced with a choice between easy gratification and difficult integrity, he'd chosen integrity. That when Claire had needed someone to tell her the truth, instead of taking advantage of her vulnerability, he'd been that person. It wasn't much, but it was enough. And as Ryan finally drifted towards sleep in his small apartment with his daughter breathing softly down the hall, he held on to that certainty like an anchor in uncertain waters. Tomorrow would bring whatever it brought. But tonight, he'd been the man he wanted to be. That had to count for something. Morning came too early, announced by Emma's feet padding across the hardwood floor and her voice calling through his door. "Dad? Dad, are you awake? We're going to be late for swimming." Ryan cracked one eye open to find his alarm hadn't gone off yet. The clock read 6:14. He groaned and rolled over to find his daughter standing in his doorway, already wearing her swimsuit under her clothes, her goggles dangling from one hand. "We've got time, Em. Lessons aren't until 8. But we need to get there early to get the good spot by the shallow end. Riley's mom always takes it if we're not first." Emma bounced on her toes, a bundle of 9-year-old energy that Ryan couldn't match on 4 hours of sleep. All right, I'm up." He swung his legs out of bed and ran a hand over his face. "Did you eat breakfast?" "Not yet. I was waiting for you." "That's my girl. Go pick out what you want, and I'll be there in 5 minutes." Emma darted off toward the kitchen, her feet thundering loud enough to probably wake the neighbors. Ryan pulled on a t-shirt and followed at a more reasonable pace, his mind already running through the day's checklist. Swim lessons until 9:30, then grocery shopping. Then he had that freelance carpentry estimate at 2 for the couple renovating their kitchen in Riverside. Mrs. Chen couldn't babysit today, which meant Emma would have to come with him to the estimate. Not ideal, but she was good about entertaining herself with her sketchbook when he was working. The coffee maker was his first stop. While it brewed, he scrambled eggs and toasted whole wheat bread, keeping one eye on Emma as she spread far too much peanut butter on her toast. Some battles weren't worth fighting before 7 a.m. "Dad?" Emma swirled her orange juice in her glass, not quite looking at him. "Can I ask you something?" "Always." "How come you don't have a girlfriend?" Ryan nearly dropped the spatula. Where the hell had that come from? "That's a pretty random question for a Thursday morning." "Riley says her mom says you're a catch, and it's weird you're always alone." Emma finally looked up, her eyes, Vanessa's eyes, though Ryan tried not to think about that too much, curious and innocent. "What's a catch?" Ryan took a long sip of coffee, buying time. Riley's mom was Karen, a divorced paralegal who'd been aggressively friendly at the last 3 swim meets. She'd asked him to coffee twice. He'd declined both times, politely but firmly. "A catch means someone people think would be a good partner," he explained carefully. "But just because someone could date doesn't mean they should. I've got a lot on my plate with work and taking care of you. Dating would be complicated." "Because of me?" Emma's face fell slightly. "No, baby, never because of you." Ryan left the stove and crouched down beside her chair. "You're the best part of my life, but being a good dad means making sure I've got time and energy for you first. Dating is something adults do when they're ready, and I'm just not ready yet." Emma seemed to consider this, chewing her peanut butter toast thoughtfully. "Okay, but if you did want a girlfriend, I'd be okay with it, just so you know." Ryan kissed the top of her head. "Noted. Now finish eating so we can get that good spot before Riley's mom steals it." They made it to the community center with 20 minutes to spare, securing their preferred location on the bleachers. Ryan watched Emma join her class in the pool, her instructor already running them through warm-up laps. She was getting good, her strokes more confident each week. Pride swelled in his chest the way it always did when he watched her master something new. His phone buzzed, a text from Marcus. "Coffee before work?" "Got news." Ryan hesitated. After last night, facing Marcus felt complicated, but avoiding him would be worse, would raise questions Ryan didn't want to answer. He typed back, "Can't. Emma's got swim lessons. Lunch instead?" "Works for me. Noon at Eddie's? See you there." Ryan pocketed his phone and tried to focus on Emma's swimming, but his mind kept drifting back to the workshop, to Claire's face when she'd asked that impossible question, to the weight of his own words hanging in the air between them. He'd done the right thing. He knew he'd done the right thing. So why did it still feel like he'd stepped into quicksand? The swim lesson ended without Ryan registering most of it. Emma bounded over, dripping and grinning, already talking about how she'd finally nailed her flip turn. He wrapped her in her towel and listened, making appropriate noises of encouragement while his thoughts churned. Grocery shopping was a blur of Emma picking out snacks and Ryan mechanically filling the cart with basics. Chicken, pasta, vegetables that Emma would complain about but eat anyway, milk, bread, the good yogurt that was overpriced but had less sugar. Normal things. Grounding things. By the time he dropped Emma at his mom's place for a few hours and headed to Eddie's diner, Ryan had almost convinced himself that lunch with Marcus would be fine. Just two friends catching up, same as always. Nothing had changed, except everything had changed, and Ryan knew it the moment he walked into the diner and saw Marcus already sitting in their usual booth, grinning like he'd won the lottery. There he is. Marcus stood and pulled Ryan into a quick hug, the kind of casual, physical affection they'd shared for years. Man, I've been dying to talk to you all morning. Ryan slid into the booth across from him, accepting a menu from the waitress, even though he always ordered the same thing. Yeah? How'd the rest of the date go? Incredible. Amazing. Potentially life-changing. Marcus leaned forward, his eyes bright with the kind of joy that Ryan hadn't seen in him since his carpentry business landed that first major contract. I told Sarah I love her. And? Ryan already knew the answer from Marcus's face, but he asked anyway. She said it back. We stayed up until 3 just talking about the future, about what we want, about how crazy it is that we found each other. Marcus shook his head, still marveling. I'm 32 years old and I've never felt like this. Like I'd do anything for another person. Like I want to build a whole life around making her happy. Something twisted in Ryan's chest. Happiness for his friend, absolutely. But also something darker, more complicated. Envy, maybe. Not of Sarah specifically, but of the simplicity of it. Marcus had found someone uncomplicated, someone who wasn't connected to every other part of his life, someone he could love without destroying friendships or betraying trust. That's really great, man. I'm happy for you. And Ryan meant it, even with the complicated feelings churning underneath. I'm thinking about asking her to move in. Is that crazy? We've only been dating for 5 months. When you know, you know. Ryan signaled the waitress for coffee. If it feels right, don't overthink it. Says the guy who overthinks everything. Marcus grinned, but it was affectionate. Speaking of which, how was the rest of your night? Finished the cabinet? Ryan's coffee arrived. He took a sip, buying time. Yeah, got it done. Locked up around midnight. You didn't have to stay that late. I could have finished it today. Wanted to help. That's what friends do. Marcus studied him with an expression Ryan couldn't quite read. You okay? You seem off. Just tired. Emma woke me up early. How is my favorite god kid? Growing too fast, she asked me this morning why I don't have a girlfriend. Marcus laughed. What'd you tell her? That I'm not ready, which is true. Ryan met his friend's eyes. Some things are more important than dating, like making sure the people you already care about are taken care of. Noble, but also kind of lonely, isn't it? Marcus's tone gentled. It's been 9 years since Vanessa. I know Emma's your priority, but you're allowed to have a life too, you know? I have a life. I've got Emma. I've got my work. I've got good friends. That's enough. Is it, though? Marcus leaned back as the waitress delivered their food, burgers for both of them, the Thursday special. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've built this fortress around yourself where nothing gets in or out except what's safe and familiar. Ryan focused on his burger, not wanting to have this conversation. I'm fine, Marcus. I didn't say you weren't fine. I'm saying you deserve more than fine. Marcus paused, then continued more carefully. You're one of the best men I know. You're patient and kind, and you actually show up when people need you. Any woman would be lucky to have you. The irony hit Ryan like a physical blow. Just 12 hours ago, a woman had offered herself to him, and he'd turned her down because it was the right thing to do, because she was Marcus's sister, and taking advantage of her pain would have been wrong on every level. And now here was Marcus, completely oblivious, telling him he should be open to connection. Maybe someday, Ryan said, because he had to say something. Right now, I'm good where I am. Marcus looked like he wanted to push further, but his phone buzzed. He glanced at it and smiled. Sarah. She's asking what I want for dinner. You should get out of here. Don't keep her waiting. We've got time to finish lunch. But Ryan was already pulling out his wallet. Actually, I need to head out. Got that estimate at 2, and I should pick up Emma first. Ryan. Seriously, go. Be with your girl. We'll catch up later. Ryan dropped cash on the table, enough to cover both their meals, and stood. And Marcus? I really am happy for you. Don't mess this up. Marcus stood too, pulling Ryan into another hug. Love you, brother. Love you too. Ryan left the diner before the guilt could completely consume him. He wasn't lying to Marcus, not exactly, but omitting the truth felt like lying's close cousin, and it sat heavy in his stomach as he drove to his mom's place to collect Emma. His mother took one look at his face and knew something was wrong. Diane Miller had been reading her son's moods since he was born, and apparently 32 years hadn't diminished that skill. You look terrible, she said bluntly, watching Emma gather her things in the living room. What's going on? Nothing, just tired. Ryan James Miller, I raised you better than to lie to my face. Ryan glanced toward the living room where Emma was putting her toys back in her backpack. Can we not do this right now? Fine, but you're coming to dinner Sunday and we're talking. Whatever's eating at you, you don't have to carry it alone. Mom, non-negotiable. Now take your daughter and go charm those clients into overpaying for your excellent work. She kissed his cheek, then Emma's, and sent them on their way. The estimate went well despite Ryan's distraction. The couple loved his portfolio, agreed to his timeline and his rate without negotiating. Emma was perfect, sitting quietly in their kitchen, drawing elaborate scenes of underwater kingdoms, while Ryan measured and took notes and discussed cabinet options. By the time they got home, Ryan was exhausted on a level that went beyond physical. Emma wanted to watch a movie, so he let her pick while he attempted to make dinner. They ended up with boxed macaroni and cheese because he couldn't focus enough to cook anything more complicated. Emma fell asleep on the couch during the movie. Ryan carried her to bed, tucked her in with her dolphin, and retreated to his own room. His phone sat on his nightstand, dark and silent. No messages from Claire. No messages from Marcus beyond a quick thanks for lunch and a photo of him and Sarah looking disgustingly happy. Ryan lay in bed staring at the ceiling, his mind refusing to quiet. He kept replaying the conversation in the workshop, kept analyzing every word, every choice. Had he said the right things? Had he been too harsh, not harsh enough? Should he have told Marcus immediately instead of sitting on it? His phone finally buzzed around 10. Not a message, though. A call. Claire's name lit up the screen. Ryan's heart kicked into overdrive. He let it ring twice more while he debated answering, then accepted the call. Hello? Hey. Claire's voice was small, uncertain. Is this a bad time? No, Emma's asleep. What's up? A long pause. Ryan could hear traffic in the background, the muffled sound of other people talking. She wasn't at home. I wanted to apologize, Claire finally said, for last night, for putting you in that position. I wasn't thinking clearly. You don't need to apologize. I do, though. You were right about everything you said. I was trying to use you to fix something that can't be fixed that way. She took a shaky breath. I talked to my therapist today. Emergency session. We worked through a lot of the stuff I've been avoiding. Relief washed through Ryan. That's good, Claire. That's really good. She helped me understand that what I was really asking for wasn't sex. It was proof that I wasn't broken, that someone could still want me. Claire's voice cracked slightly. And you gave me that proof by saying no, by treating me like I was worth more than a quick fix. Ryan closed his eyes, his throat tight. You are worth more. So much more. I'm starting to believe that. It's hard, but I'm trying. Another pause. Are we okay? I couldn't stand it if I ruined our friendship over this. We're okay, I promise. And Marcus? You didn't tell him, did you? No, that's your story to tell if you want to, not mine. Thank you. The relief in her voice was palpable. I should go. I'm out with some friends from work, and they're waiting for me. I just wanted to make sure we were okay. We are. Take care of yourself, Claire. You too, Ryan. The call ended. Ryan set his phone aside and finally felt some of the tension leave his shoulders. Claire was getting help. She understood why he'd said no. They were going to be okay. But as he drifted toward sleep, one thought kept circling back. What if things weren't as simple as he'd told himself? What if, somewhere underneath all the very valid reasons he'd said no, there was a part of him that had wanted to say yes? Not because he wanted to take advantage of Claire, but because he was lonely too. Because 9 years was a long time to build walls. Because maybe Marcus had been right about the fortress. Ryan pushed the thought away. It didn't matter. He'd made the right choice for the right reasons, and anything else was just his exhausted brain creating problems where none existed. The next day was Friday. Emma had a play date after school, which gave Ryan time to finish a coffee table he'd been building for a client in the Heights. He worked in his small garage workshop, losing himself in the familiar rhythm of sanding and staining, letting the work quiet his mind. His phone rang around 3. Marcus. Hey, what's up? Claire told me. Marcus's voice was tight, controlled in a way that made Ryan's stomach drop. About what happened Wednesday night. Ryan set down his sandpaper very carefully. Okay? Why didn't you tell me? Because it wasn't my story to tell, it was hers. She came to my workshop and propositioned my best friend, and you didn't think I should know? Anger edged into Marcus's voice now, sharp and hurt. She came to me in a moment of vulnerability, and I handled it. Telling you immediately would have been violating her privacy. Or maybe you just didn't want me to know you were alone with my sister at midnight. The accusation hit like a slap. You think I wanted that situation? You think I was happy about it? I don't know what to think, Ryan. You kept a pretty significant secret from me. To protect Claire's dignity, not because I had anything to hide. Ryan's own anger rose to meet Marcus's. I said no. I told her she deserved better. I did everything right in a situation that was already impossible. And then you sat across from me at lunch and acted like nothing happened. Because nothing did happen, that's the point. Ryan tried to rein in his temper. Look, I get that you're upset, but I made the best call I could with the information I had. If you can't trust that, then we've got bigger problems than me keeping Claire's confidence for 48 hours. Silence stretched between them, broken only by both men breathing hard. She said you were kind, Marcus finally said, his voice quieter. That you didn't make her feel stupid or broken. That you told her she deserved to be valued. Because she does. I know that. And intellectually, I know you did the right thing. But emotionally, Marcus trailed off. That's my baby sister, man. The idea of her being in pain enough to do something like that, and me not knowing, not being able to help. Ryan understood then. This wasn't about trust. It was about Marcus feeling helpless to protect someone he loved. She's getting help, Ryan said gently. She called her therapist. She's working through it. She's going to be okay. Because of you. No, because of her. I just didn't make it worse. Ryan sat down on his workbench, suddenly tired. Are we okay, Marcus? Another long pause. Yeah, we're okay. I just needed to process. Understandable. Sarah wants to have you and Emma over for dinner tomorrow. She says if I'm going to be mad at you, it should be where she can supervise and make sure I don't do anything stupid. Despite everything, Ryan smiled. She's good for you. She really is. So dinner, 6 o'clock? We'll be there. And Ryan, thank you for being the kind of man my sister could trust, even in a situation like that. The call ended. Ryan sat in his garage surrounded by sawdust and half-finished projects, feeling like he'd just navigated a minefield blindfolded and somehow made it through intact. His phone buzzed again almost immediately. This time it was Claire. Marcus told you we talked? Yeah, we're good. Thank you for not hating me. Never going to happen. Focus on taking care of yourself. I am, starting therapy twice a week. And I'm moving out of the guest house, got an apartment downtown. Fresh start. That's great, Claire. Proud of you. Dinner tomorrow with you guys and Marcus and Sarah. Fair warning, I'll be there. Ryan stared at that message for a long moment, his chest tight. Dinner. All of them together. Claire, who'd propositioned him. Marcus, who now knew about it. Sarah, who probably knew everything too. Emma, who would be her usual observant self and wonder why all the adults were acting weird. This was going to be spectacularly awkward. "Looking forward to it," he typed back, because what else could he say? Emma's playdate ended at 5. Ryan picked her up, and they stopped for pizza on the way home, sitting in a booth by the window while Emma told him elaborate stories about her friend Madison's new kitten. "Can we get a cat?" Emma asked for the 1,000th time. "Our lease doesn't allow pets," Ryan said for the 1,000th time. "Then can we move somewhere that does?" "Maybe someday." Emma accepted this with the philosophical resignation of a child who'd learned that maybe someday usually meant no. She went back to her pizza, swinging her legs under the table. "Dad," she said around a mouthful of cheese, "you seem sad lately." Ryan's heart clenched. "I'm not sad, sweetheart. Just thinking about adult stuff." "Is it bad adult stuff?" "No, just complicated adult stuff. Like taxes." Ryan laughed despite himself. "Yeah, kind of like taxes. Taxes are stupid." "Completely agree." They finished their pizza and headed home. Emma wanted to play board games, so they spent the evening on the living room floor playing Sorry and Uno until Emma started yawning. Bath time, teeth brushing, 2 chapters of the book they were reading together, and then she was asleep again, her small body trusting and peaceful. Ryan envied that peace as he retreated to his own room and lay awake for the second night in a row, his mind refusing to quiet. Tomorrow would come whether he was ready or not. Dinner with everyone who now knew about the worst conversation of his week. No way to avoid it, no way to prepare. All he could do was show up and hope that the foundation of years of friendship was strong enough to weather the earthquake of the last few days. His phone buzzed one more time before he finally fell asleep. A text from his mother. "Don't forget Sunday dinner, and bring wine. We're talking." Ryan groaned into his pillow. Apparently everyone wanted to have serious conversations with him this week, but underneath the dread, there was something else, something that felt almost like relief. Because secrets were heavy, and carrying them alone was exhausting, and maybe letting people in, even when it was uncomfortable, was part of being human. Maybe that's what Claire had been trying to tell him all along. Saturday arrived with the kind of oppressive heat that made the air shimmer above the asphalt. Ryan spent the morning helping Emma pick out an outfit for dinner, which turned into a fashion show that lasted 40 minutes and involved every remotely nice piece of clothing she owned. She finally settled on a blue sundress with sunflowers on it, then immediately wanted to change her mind. "Emma, we're going to be late if you don't stick with a choice," Ryan said, trying to keep the exhaustion out of his voice. "But what if Claire thinks it's babyish? She's really cool, and I want her to think I'm cool too." Ryan sat down on the edge of her bed, pulling his daughter close. "Claire already thinks you're cool. You could show up in your pajamas, and she'd still think that." "Really?" "Really. Now get dressed. We've got 20 minutes. Emma darted back into her closet while Ryan checked his phone. No new messages. He'd been half expecting Claire to cancel, or Marcus to uninvite them, or something to blow up this fragile peace they'd all constructed over the last 2 days. But his phone remained stubbornly silent, except for a reminder about Emma's dentist appointment next week. They arrived at Marcus and Sarah's place at 6:05, fashionably late enough to not seem desperate, but early enough to not be rude. Sarah's house was a renovated bungalow in the Arts District, all exposed brick and huge windows that let in streams of golden evening light. Marcus's Jeep was already in the driveway, parked next to a small silver sedan that must belong to Claire. Ryan's stomach twisted. No backing out now. Emma bounded up the front steps and knocked before Ryan could stop her. The door swung open to reveal Sarah, her blonde hair pulled back in a messy bun, wearing jeans and a flowy white top. She broke into a genuine smile when she saw them. "There you are! Come in! Come in! Emma, you look absolutely beautiful." Emma beamed and did a little twirl. "Thanks. Dad says you're really nice and that Uncle Marcus is lucky." Sarah laughed and shot Ryan an amused look. "Did he now? Well, your dad's pretty great himself." She ushered them inside where the smell of garlic and tomatoes filled the air. Marcus is in the kitchen pretending he knows how to make his mom's lasagna. Claire's helping him not burn the house down. Ryan followed Sarah through the living room, Emma's hand in his heart beating faster than it should. They rounded the corner into the kitchen, and there was Marcus at the stove, wearing an apron that said Grill Sergeant. and Claire perched on the counter beside him, holding a wooden spoon like a weapon. "I'm telling you, you need to add more oregano," Claire was saying. "Mom's recipe doesn't call for more oregano." "Mom's recipe is from 1987, and she's been lying to you about the measurements your entire life." Marcus turned to argue and spotted Ryan. His expression shifted. Not quite uncomfortable, but not quite easy either. "Hey, you made it." "Wouldn't miss it." Ryan held up the bottle of wine he'd brought. "Where should I put this?" "Counter's fine, Sarah. Can you—" "Already on it." Sarah grabbed the wine and a corkscrew, moving with the easy familiarity of someone who'd been in this kitchen before. "Emma, honey, want to help me set the table?" Emma nodded enthusiastically and followed Sarah into the dining room, leaving Ryan alone with Marcus and Claire. The silence stretched for exactly 3 seconds before Claire broke it. "Hi, Ryan." "Hey, Claire." He met her eyes, searching for discomfort or regret or anger. Instead, he found something that looked like gratitude mixed with embarrassment. "How are you?" "Better. Genuinely better." She hopped off the counter and crossed to the fridge. "I signed a lease on an apartment downtown. Move in next weekend. 1 bedroom, exposed brick, close to work. It's perfect." "That's great." Ryan meant it. The fresh start would be good for her. Marcus turned off the stove and faced Ryan fully. "Can we talk? Just for a minute?" Ryan's chest tightened, but he nodded. Marcus led him out to the back patio, sliding the glass door shut behind them. The backyard was small but well-maintained, with string lights overhead and a small herb garden in raised beds. "Look," Marcus started, shoving his hands in his pockets. "I was harsh on the phone yesterday. Sarah pointed out that I was taking my anger at the situation out on you when you literally did nothing wrong. You had a right to be upset." "Maybe, but not at you." Marcus met his eyes. "Claire told me everything, what she asked, what you said, how you handled it. And honestly, man, I don't know if I could have done what you did. Turning her down like that, knowing she was hurting, knowing it would have been easy to just say yes and deal with the consequences later. That took real strength." Ryan shook his head. "It wasn't strength. It was just knowing that some things aren't mine to take, even when they're offered." "That's exactly what strength is." Marcus clapped a hand on Ryan's shoulder. "I'm sorry I made you feel like you did something wrong. You protected my sister when she needed protecting, even from herself. That's what family does." The word landed heavy between them. Family. Because that's what they were, really. More than friends, closer than brothers by blood, bound by years of showing up for each other when it mattered. "We're good?" Ryan asked. "We're good." Marcus pulled him into a brief hug, the kind of physical reassurance men gave each other when words weren't quite enough. "Now, let's go eat before Sarah decides my lasagna is garbage and orders pizza instead." They headed back inside to find the table set, Emma helping Sarah arrange napkins with intense concentration, and Claire opening the wine. She poured glasses for the adults, then filled a smaller glass with sparkling cider for Emma, who looked thrilled to be included. Dinner started awkwardly, everyone too careful with their words, too aware of the elephant in the room. But Emma, blessedly oblivious to adult tension, filled the silence with stories about swim lessons and her friend Madison's new kitten and a very detailed explanation of the plot of the last book she'd read. And then the dragon turns out to be actually a princess who was cursed, but she doesn't want to turn back into a princess because being a dragon is way more fun, Emma concluded, stabbing a piece of lasagna with her fork. "Smart dragon," Claire said, smiling. "Why would anyone want to go back to boring princess stuff when you could fly and breathe fire?" "Exactly!" Emma lit up, finding an ally. "That's what I told Dad, but he said sometimes being responsible is more important than doing what's fun." Ryan nearly choked on his wine. Claire caught his eye across the table, amusement dancing in her expression. "Your dad's not wrong," Claire said diplomatically, "but maybe the trick is finding a way to be responsible and still keep some of the dragon parts. The flying, the fire, the adventure. Just in smaller, more manageable doses." "Like how you design websites but also do art on the side?" Emma asked, because apparently she'd been paying attention to every conversation she'd ever overheard. "Exactly like that." Claire seemed genuinely charmed. "You're pretty smart, you know that?" Emma grinned. "Dad says I get it from him." And he's right. Claire's eyes met Ryan's again, something warm and complicated passing between them. Not attraction exactly, more like understanding, recognition. The acknowledgement that they'd both been changed by what happened in that workshop and were still figuring out what that meant. Sarah steered the conversation towards safer topics. Marcus's upcoming projects, a gallery opening she wanted to drag everyone to next month, the absurd drama happening with her coworkers. The tension gradually eased as the wine flowed and Emma's laughter became the soundtrack to the evening. After dinner, Emma and Sarah disappeared into the living room to look at Sarah's collection of art books, while Marcus and Claire argued over the proper way to load a dishwasher. Ryan excused himself to the bathroom, needing a moment to breathe away from the careful dance they'd all been performing. He was washing his hands when someone knocked softly on the door. "Just a minute," he called. "It's me." Claire's voice, quiet enough that no one else would hear. "Can we talk? Really talk?" Ryan dried his hands and opened the door. Claire stood in the hallway, her arms crossed, her expression serious. "Out here?" Ryan asked, hyper-aware that Marcus and Sarah were just around the corner. "Back patio, please." They slipped outside through the side door, avoiding the kitchen. The evening had cooled slightly, a breeze carrying the scent of Sarah's jasmine plants. Claire sat on the porch steps, and Ryan joined her, maintaining a careful distance. "I've been thinking," Claire started, staring out at the darkening yard, "about what you said. About deserving someone who sees all of me, not just the parts that are convenient or easy or useful. I realized I've never actually had that. Not with Derek, not with anyone I dated before him. They all liked the idea of me, the cool girlfriend who was into art and didn't ask for too much. But none of them wanted to deal with the messy parts. The insecurity, the family baggage, the anxiety I get about whether my work is good enough." She turned to face him. "You've known me for 12 years and you've seen all of that, the good and the bad, and you still think I'm worth something." Ryan's throat tightened. "Of course I do." "That means more than you know." Claire picked at a thread on her jeans. "When you said no, I was embarrassed and hurt and kind of relieved all at once. Embarrassed because obviously I just propositioned my brother's best friend like an idiot. Hurt because rejection always stings, even when you know it's right. But relieved because somewhere deep down, I knew that if you'd said yes, it would have confirmed everything Derek made me believe about myself. Which was that I'm not worth the effort of really knowing, that my value is in what I can provide, not who I am." She laughed bitterly. "Pretty messed up, right?" "Not messed up, just hurt." Ryan shifted slightly to see her face better. "Healing from that kind of damage takes time. There's no shortcut. My therapist said the same thing. She also said I need to get comfortable being alone for a while. Really alone, not just between relationships. Learning who I am when I'm not trying to be what someone else wants." Claire met his eyes. "It's terrifying. Most worthwhile things are." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, listening to the distant sound of Emma's laughter from inside the house. Then Claire spoke again, softer this time. "Can I ask you something? And you can tell me if I'm crossing a line." "Go ahead." "When you turned me down, was any part of it because you wanted to say yes?" Ryan considered lying, considered deflecting, but Claire had been brave enough to ask, and she deserved honesty. "Yeah," he admitted. "A small part. Not because I wanted to take advantage of you, but because it's been a long time since anyone looked at me like I was someone worth wanting. Even when I knew all the reasons it was wrong, there was this tiny voice asking why I couldn't just take something for myself for once." "But you didn't." "But I didn't, because that voice was my loneliness talking, not my integrity, and I'd rather be lonely than compromise who I'm trying to be." Ryan looked at her fully. "Does that make sense?" "Perfect sense." Claire smiled, sad but genuine. "For what it's worth, I think you're one of the best men I've ever known. Not just because you said no, but because of how you said it. You didn't make me feel small or broken or pathetic. You made me feel seen. You are seen, Claire, by a lot of people who care about you. I'm starting to understand that." She stood, brushing off her jeans. "We should probably get back inside before Marcus sends out a search party." Ryan stood too. "Claire, thank you for being honest with me, both times. Thank you for being worth being honest with." They headed back inside to find Marcus loading the last of the dishes into the dishwasher, while Sarah and Emma played some kind of card game at the coffee table. Everything looked normal, peaceful, like the kind of family gathering that happened every weekend across the country. Marcus looked up when they entered. Everything okay? Yeah, Claire said, her voice steady. Everything's good. And looking at her face, Ryan believed it. Not perfect, not healed, but genuinely moving in the right direction. It was enough. The rest of the evening passed easily. They played cards. Emma won twice and gloated appropriately, and talked about nothing important. Marcus told terrible dad jokes that made Emma groan and Sarah laugh. Claire showed them mock-ups for a new client project on her phone. Ryan just listened, content to be part of this moment, this gathering of people who knew each other's flaws and showed up anyway. By 9:30, Emma was yawning into her fist. Ryan took that as their cue to leave. Sarah hugged them both goodbye, making Emma promise to come back soon. Marcus walked them to the door while Claire stayed in the kitchen, giving them space. Same time next month? Marcus asked. Wouldn't miss it. Ryan meant it. And Ryan, thanks for being you. I know that sounds cheesy, but I mean it. Ryan didn't trust himself to speak, so he just nodded and steered Emma toward the truck. She chattered the whole drive home about how Sarah was the coolest and how Claire promised to teach her some design tricks, and how Uncle Marcus's lasagna was almost as good as Grandma's. Did you have fun, Dad? Emma asked as he tucked her into bed. I did, sweetheart. Did you? The best. I like when we do stuff with family. Ryan kissed her forehead. Me too. After Emma fell asleep, Ryan returned to his own room and checked his phone. A text from Marcus. Seriously, thank you for everything. Another from Sarah. You're good for all of us. Don't be a stranger. And one from Claire, sent just 5 minutes ago. I'm glad we talked. Sleep well. Ryan set his phone aside and lay back against his pillows. The dinner he'd been dreading had turned into something almost healing. Not a reset button that erased what happened, but an acknowledgement that they could all move forward together, changed but not broken. Sunday morning brought another challenge, brunch with his mother. Diane Miller lived 15 minutes away in the same modest ranch house where Ryan had grown up, with the same yellow kitchen and the same creaky floorboards and the same photographs covering every available surface. Emma ran ahead to knock on the door while Ryan gathered the wine and the flowers he'd stopped to buy. His mother opened the door already wearing her knowing expression, the one that said she'd been analyzing him since before he was born and could read every thought in his head. There's my girl! Diane scooped Emma into a hug. And my son who thinks bringing flowers will distract me from the fact that he's been avoiding my calls. I haven't been avoiding. Thursday, Friday, and yesterday morning. 3 calls, 0 answers. Diane ushered them inside. But you're here now, so we'll talk after we eat. Brunch was quiche and fresh fruit and the good coffee that Diane only made for special occasions. Emma entertained her grandmother with the same stories she'd told everyone else, embellished slightly for dramatic effect. Ryan ate quietly, knowing the interrogation was coming and unable to stop it. After they ate, Diane sent Emma outside to the backyard with strict instructions to pick only the ripe tomatoes from the garden. As soon as the door closed, she turned to Ryan. All right, what happened? Nothing happened. Ryan, I can see it on your face. Something's eating at you, and you're going to tell me what it is because I'm your mother, and I have a right to worry. Ryan set down his coffee cup. If I tell you, you can't make a big deal out of it. I'll make exactly as big a deal as it warrants. Now talk. So Ryan talked. He told her about Wednesday night, about Claire's question and his response, about the conversations with Marcus and the awkward dinner that had somehow turned into healing. He left out some of the more private details, but gave her enough to understand the weight of it. Diane listened without interrupting, her expression shifting from concern to understanding to something that looked almost like pride. You did the right thing, she said when he finished. I know, but it doesn't feel simple. The right thing rarely does. Diane reached across the table and took his hand. You protected that girl when she couldn't protect herself. You put her well-being ahead of your own temptation. That's what real integrity looks like. Marcus said something similar. Marcus is a smart man. You should listen to him more often. Diane squeezed his hand. But Ryan, sweetheart, can I ask you something? Sure. When was the last time you did something for yourself? Something that wasn't about Emma or work or being there for everyone else? Ryan started to answer, then realized he couldn't. I don't know. That's what I thought. His mother's expression softened. You're a wonderful father and a loyal friend, but you're also a person with needs and wants that matter. Turning Claire down was absolutely the right choice, but don't use it as an excuse to keep hiding behind your walls. I'm not hiding. You've been hiding since Vanessa left, building this fortress where nothing can hurt you because nothing can get in. And I understand why she destroyed you when she walked away. But Ryan, you can't let her damage define the rest of your life. The words hit harder than Ryan expected. He pulled his hand back, suddenly defensive. I'm fine, Mom. I've got Emma. I've got my work. I've got good friends. That's more than a lot of people have. It's enough to survive on. But is it enough to actually live? Diane leaned forward. I'm not saying you need to jump into some relationship tomorrow. I'm saying you need to stop using Emma and responsibility as shields against your own loneliness. That child deserves a father who shows her that love is worth the risk, not something to be avoided at all costs. I'm not avoiding. When was the last time you went on a date, or even considered it? Ryan couldn't remember. 3 years? 4? He'd convinced himself he was too busy, that Emma needed stability, that dating would be too complicated. Exactly. Diane sat back, satisfied she'd made her point. I'm not telling you to marry the first woman who smiles at you. I'm telling you to consider that maybe, just maybe, you deserve more than the half-life you've been living. Claire needed you to tell her she was worth more than settling. Well, baby, so are you. Emma burst back through the door holding a basket of tomatoes, saving Ryan from having to respond. But his mother's words followed him home, circling his thoughts like persistent flies. That night, after Emma was asleep, Ryan sat on his couch with a beer he wasn't really drinking and his phone in his hand. He opened his messages, scrolled through them. Marcus, Sarah, Claire, his mom, work clients, Emma's school. All the people who needed things from him, who relied on him, who saw him as the steady one, the responsible one, the one who always did the right thing. When had he stopped being a person with wants and started being just a role? His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Hi, Ryan. This is Karen from Swim Lessons. I hope it's okay that I got your number from the parent directory. I was wondering if you'd like to grab coffee sometime? No pressure, just thought it might be nice to talk to another single parent. Ryan stared at the message for a long moment. Karen was nice enough, friendly, put together, clearly interested. A year ago, he would have deleted it immediately. 6 months ago, he would have made an excuse. But sitting here in his quiet apartment with his mother's words still echoing, he typed back, Sure. When works for you? He hit send before he could overthink it. The response came quickly. Next Saturday, after swim lessons, there's a good coffee place near the community center. Sounds good. See you then. Ryan set his phone down and took a sip of his beer. It wasn't a grand gesture. It wasn't even really brave. It was just one small step toward considering that maybe, possibly, he deserved to want things for himself too. His phone buzzed again. This time it was Claire. Hey, I know it's late, but I wanted to tell you something. I told my therapist about what you said, about deserving someone who sees all of me. She said you were right, and she said I should tell you that you deserve the same thing, so I'm telling you. Don't settle for less than you're worth either, okay? Ryan smiled despite himself. Deal. Good luck with the move next weekend. Thanks. And Ryan, I'm glad you're in my life, even after everything. Me too. He meant it. The mess of the last week had been uncomfortable and complicated and had forced him to examine parts of himself he'd been avoiding. But it had also reminded him that he wasn't alone, that he had people who cared about him, that vulnerability didn't always lead to destruction. Sometimes it just led to truth. Ryan finished his beer and headed to bed, his mind quieter than it had been in days. The coffee date with Karen might be awkward or disappointing or led nowhere at all, but at least it was something. At least it was trying. And maybe that's all anyone could do. Keep trying, keep showing up, keep choosing integrity even when it was hard, and trust that eventually the right things would find their way into the spaces you'd been protecting. As he drifted towards sleep, Ryan thought about Claire moving into her new apartment, about Marcus planning a future with Sarah, about Emma growing up so fast it scared him sometimes. Everyone was moving forward, changing, taking risks. Maybe it was time he did the same. The week leading up to the coffee date passed in a blur of work and parenting and trying not to overthink what was essentially just coffee with another adult. Ryan found himself second-guessing the decision roughly 40 times a day, then reminding himself that his mother was right. He couldn't hide forever. Emma noticed something was different. On Thursday night, while they were making tacos together, she kept shooting him curious glances like she was trying to solve a puzzle. "You keep smiling at your phone," she finally said, wielding a cheese grater with the confidence of a much older person. "Do I?" "Yeah, like when Uncle Marcus talks about Sarah. Are you texting a girl?" Ryan nearly dropped the tomato he was chopping. "What?" "No, I mean, sort of. It's just coffee with someone from your swim class." Emma's eyes went wide. "Riley's mom?" "Yes, but it's not a big deal. Just two adults having coffee and talking." "That's what a date is, Dad. It's not—" "Okay, maybe it's kind of a date, but a very casual one, nothing serious." Emma set down the grater and crossed her arms, suddenly looking way too much like Ryan's mother. "Do you like her?" "I don't really know her well enough to like her yet. That's what coffee is for, getting to know someone." "But you want to get to know her?" Ryan put down the knife and crouched to Emma's level. "I want to try being open to meeting new people. That doesn't mean anything's going to change with us. You're still my #1 priority, always." Emma considered this with the seriousness of a judge weighing evidence. "Okay, but if she's mean to you, I'm going to tell her off." Ryan laughed and pulled her into a hug. "Deal. Now finish grating that cheese before we starve." Friday brought a text from Claire with photos of her new apartment, bare walls and boxes everywhere, but the exposed brick she'd been excited about was even better in person. Ryan sent back encouragement and an offer to help her move furniture if she needed it, which she politely declined, saying Marcus and some friends from work had already volunteered. Saturday morning arrived with Emma bouncing around the apartment like she'd consumed pure caffeine for breakfast. Swim lessons couldn't come fast enough for her, apparently, because she kept asking if it was time to leave yet, even though they had 45 minutes to spare. "Why are you so excited?" Ryan asked, watching her try on 3 different swimsuits before settling on the first one. "Because you have a date after, and I want to make sure you look good." "It's not—" "Never mind." There was no point arguing with a 9-year-old who'd already made up her mind. "What's wrong with how I look?" Emma studied him critically. "You're wearing your boring work jeans, and that shirt has a stain on it." Ryan looked down. She was right about the stain, something that looked suspiciously like wood glue near the hem. "Okay, fashion police, what should I wear?" 20 minutes and a complete outfit change later, Ryan was wearing jeans Emma deemed acceptable and a dark blue Henley that apparently made his eyes look nice. He felt ridiculous taking fashion advice from his daughter, but when they arrived at the community center and Karen smiled at him with obvious appreciation, he silently thanked Emma's eye for detail. Swim lessons passed in their usual chaos of splashing and whistle-blowing and kids shrieking with delight. Ryan tried to focus on watching Emma improve her backstroke, but his eyes kept drifting to Karen sitting 3 rows up, her blonde hair pulled into a ponytail, laughing at something another parent said. She caught him looking once and waved. Ryan waved back, feeling like a teenager instead of a 32-year-old father. When lessons ended, Emma bounded over, dripping wet and grinning. "I did 3 full laps without stopping." "I saw. I'm so proud of you." Ryan wrapped her in her towel. "Listen, Mrs. Chen is going to pick you up in about 10 minutes and take you to her place for a few hours. Is that okay?" "Because of your date?" "Because I'm having coffee with Karen." "Yes." "Good luck, Dad." Emma hugged him, getting his shirt wet in the process. "Remember, if she's mean to you, I'm going to tell her off." Noted. Mrs. Chen arrived right on schedule, greeting Emma with the warmth of a grandmother, even though they weren't related. Ryan thanked her profusely, confirmed he'd pick Emma up by 2, and watched them leave before turning to find Karen approaching. "Ready?" she asked, her smile easy and genuine. "Yeah, there's a place called Brewhaven about 2 blocks from here. They make a great cappuccino." "Lead the way." They walked in comfortable enough silence, the morning sun already warm on their shoulders. Brewhaven was busy but not packed, the kind of local coffee shop with mismatched furniture and local art on the walls that Ryan had always preferred over the corporate chains. They ordered cappuccino for him, iced latte for her, and found a small table by the window. So, Karen started, wrapping her hands around her cup. I have to admit, I'm a little nervous. I haven't done this in a while. Done what? Had coffee? She laughed. Had coffee with an attractive man who I asked out like some kind of brave person. For what it's worth, I haven't done this in about 9 years, so you're doing better than me. 9 years? Really? Ryan nodded. Emma's mom left when she was 3 months old. I've been pretty focused on being a dad since then. Dating wasn't really on my radar. Karen's expression softened. That must have been incredibly hard. It was, but we figured it out. Ryan took a sip of his cappuccino, grateful for something to do with his hands. What about you? Riley's dad? He's a good father, just a terrible husband. We divorced 2 years ago. Amicable enough, shared custody, the whole modern family thing. She traced patterns in the condensation on her glass. I threw myself into work for a while. I'm a paralegal downtown, but I'm trying to remember that I'm allowed to have a life outside of being Riley's mom. That's where I'm at, too. Trying to figure out what having a life looks like when you've structured everything around someone else's needs. It's weird, right? Like you forget how to be a person instead of just a parent. Exactly. Ryan felt some of the tension ease from his shoulders. This was just talking. Just two people trying to navigate the same complicated territory. So what do you do for fun? When you're not being Riley's mom or working? Honestly, I've been trying to figure that out. I used to paint before Riley was born, but I haven't picked up a brush in years. What about you? Woodworking. I do custom carpentry on the side, building furniture, cabinetry. It's good work. Lets me think while my hands stay busy. That's actually really impressive. I can barely hang a picture frame without it ending up crooked. They fell into easier conversation after that, trading stories about parenting mishaps and work frustrations and the small victories that made the hard days worth it. Karen was funny and self-deprecating and genuinely interested when Ryan talked about a coffee table he was building. She told him about the cases she worked on, carefully, without violating confidentiality, and the absurd office politics that made corporate law feel like high school with better suits. An hour passed without Ryan noticing, then another. He checked his phone and was surprised to see it was almost noon. I should probably let you go, Karen said, noticing him check the time. I'm sure you've got things to do. Just need to pick up Emma by 2, but this was really nice. I'm glad you texted. Me too. Karen stood, gathering her purse. Would you want to do this again? Maybe actually get dinner next time? Ryan hesitated for just a second. Not because he didn't want to, but because the weight of saying yes felt significant. Then he thought about his mother's words, about Claire's text, about Emma telling him she'd be okay with him dating. Yeah, I'd like that. Karen's smile was genuine and warm. Great. I'll text you some options for next weekend. Sounds good. They walked back to the parking lot together, and Karen gave him a quick hug goodbye before heading to her car. Ryan stood there for a moment, processing what had just happened. He'd gone on a date, an actual, honest-to-God date, and it had been nice, easy, normal. He was still smiling when his phone rang. Marcus. Hey, what's up? Where are you? You sound weird. I'm at the community center, just had coffee with someone. A pause. Coffee with someone? Like a date someone? Maybe. Yeah, kind of. Marcus let out a whoop loud enough that Ryan had to pull the phone away from his ear. Finally! It's about damn time. Who is she? Karen. Her daughter's in Emma's swim class. And? How'd it go? Good. Really good, actually. We're getting dinner next weekend. Ryan Miller willingly going on a second date. I never thought I'd see the day. Marcus's voice was full of pride and amusement. I'm happy for you, man. Seriously. It's just coffee and maybe dinner. Don't make it a bigger deal than it is. Too late. I'm already planning the wedding. Sarah's going to lose her mind when I tell her. Please don't. Already texting her. Anyway, I actually called because I need a favor. Claire's move is tomorrow and one of her friends bailed. Can you help us with the heavy stuff? Should only take a few hours. Ryan didn't even have to think about it. Of course. What time? 9? I'll bring the truck. See you then. Ryan picked up Emma from Mrs. Chen's place and spent the afternoon listening to her pepper him with questions about the coffee date. He answered as honestly as he could without making it seem more serious than it was, But Emma was already planning what she'd wear when she inevitably met Karen properly. That night, after Emma fell asleep, Ryan texted Karen, "Thanks again for coffee. I had a really good time." Her response came quickly. "Me too. Looking forward to dinner next weekend. Sleep well." Ryan set his phone on his nightstand and stared at the ceiling, feeling something he hadn't felt in years. Not quite hope. That felt too presumptuous. But possibility. The sense that maybe his mother was right, that maybe there was more to life than just surviving day to day, that maybe he was allowed to want things for himself. Sunday morning arrived too early. Ryan left Emma with his mother, who gave him a knowing look but mercifully didn't comment, and drove to Claire's old place. Marcus's truck was already there, along with a small moving van and several people Ryan didn't recognize, probably Claire's co-workers. Claire emerged from the guest house carrying a box of books, her hair tied back in a bandana, wearing paint-stained jeans and an old college t-shirt. She looked lighter somehow, less burdened than she had 2 weeks ago. "Hey," she said, setting the box in the truck bed. "Thanks for coming." "Of course. What do you need me to grab?" "Most of the furniture is already loaded, just some boxes left and the bookshelf in the bedroom. Fair warning, it's heavy and awkward." Ryan and Marcus tackled the bookshelf while Claire directed traffic with the smaller boxes. The work was familiar and grounding, the kind of physical labor that let Ryan's mind wander. He thought about the coffee date, about the dinner plan for next weekend, about how strange it felt to be moving forward after so long standing still. "You're quiet," Marcus said as they maneuvered the bookshelf through the narrow doorway. "Everything okay?" "Yeah, just thinking." "About your date yesterday?" "How do you already know about that?" "Sarah told Claire, and Claire told me. The network of information around here is airtight, brother." Marcus grinned. "So? How was it?" "Good. She's nice. Easy to talk to." "That's it? Just nice?" Ryan adjusted his grip on the bookshelf. "I'm not going to overthink one coffee date, Marcus. We're having dinner next weekend. We'll see where it goes from there." "Fair enough. I'm just glad you're trying." They loaded the bookshelf and made the drive to Claire's new apartment downtown. The building was older but well-maintained, with big windows and original hardwood floors. Claire's unit was on the 3rd floor with a view of the city skyline that was genuinely impressive. "This is amazing," Ryan said, setting down a box in what would become her living room. "Right? I fell in love with it the second I saw it." Claire opened the windows, letting in fresh air and city sounds. "It's mine. Not mine and someone else's. Not a temporary stop between relationships. Just mine." Marcus wrapped an arm around her shoulders. "I'm proud of you, little sister." "Thanks, big brother. Now help me figure out where this couch should go." They spent the next 3 hours arranging furniture and unpacking boxes and debating the merits of various decorating choices. Claire's friends ordered pizza, and they all sat on the floor eating and laughing while Claire told embarrassing stories about Marcus from when they were kids. Around 2, people started filtering out. Ryan stayed to help Marcus install Claire's curtain rods while she assembled a bookshelf in the corner. The easy rhythm of working alongside his best friend, helping his sister build a new life, felt right in a way Ryan couldn't quite articulate. "Can I ask you something?" Claire said during a quiet moment while Marcus was in the bathroom. "Sure." "Marcus told me you went on a date. How do you feel about that?" Ryan considered the question. "Honestly, terrified and hopeful in equal measure." "That sounds about right," Claire smiled. "For what it's worth, I think it's great. You deserve to have someone see you the way you saw me. Someone who understands that you're more than just the roles you play." "Thanks, Claire. And hey, if it doesn't work out with swim class mom, you've got options. I know at least 3 women at my company who would jump at the chance to date a single dad who actually has his life together." Ryan laughed. "I appreciate the vote of confidence, but let's see how dinner goes first." Marcus returned and they finished the curtain rods. By the time they left, Claire's apartment looked like an actual home instead of just a collection of boxes. She hugged them both at the door, thanking them profusely. "You good here?" Marcus asked. "Got everything you need?" "I'm perfect. Now go. I want to enjoy my space." Ryan and Marcus headed downstairs to the truck. The afternoon sun was starting to soften, painting the city in golden light. "You know what I realized?" Marcus said as they climbed into the cab. This is the first time in my adult life that everyone I care about is actually doing okay. Sarah and I are solid. Claire's healing and moving forward. And you're finally letting yourself consider that maybe you deserve some happiness too. Don't jinx it. I'm serious. We've all been through some heavy stuff. Divorces, breakups, betrayals, all of it. But we came out the other side. That's worth celebrating. Marcus was right. A month ago, Ryan had been coasting through life, convinced that maintaining the status quo was the same as being content. Now Claire was building a new life in a new apartment. Marcus was planning a future with Sarah, and Ryan had agreed to a second date with a woman who made him laugh. They'd all been changed by the events of the last few weeks, but maybe that was okay. Maybe change was just another word for growth. Marcus dropped Ryan back at his truck. Dinner at my place next Saturday? Assuming you don't have another hot date. My date's Friday. Saturday works. Look at you having a social calendar. I'm so proud. Marcus's grin was infectious. See you then, brother. Ryan drove to his mother's house to pick up Emma. She was in the backyard picking herbs from Diane's garden, her hands stained green and her face flushed with summer heat. How was the move? Diane asked, walking Ryan into the kitchen. Good. Claire's place is great. She seems really happy. And how are you? Ryan knew what she was really asking. I had coffee with someone yesterday. Karen, from Emma's swim class. We're having dinner on Friday. Diane's face lit up. Ryan, that's wonderful. It's just dinner, Mom. It's more than just dinner. It's you finally admitting that you're allowed to want things for yourself. She pulled him into a hug, fierce and loving. I'm proud of you, baby. Don't make a big deal out of it. Too late. She released him and called for Emma. Your father's ready to go. Emma came running, dirty and happy, already talking about the tomatoes she'd picked and the recipe she and Grandma had found online. Ryan listened with half his attention, the other half still processing the weekend's events. That night, after Emma was in bed, Ryan sat on his couch with his laptop open, looking at restaurant options for Friday. Nothing too fancy. He didn't want to make Karen uncomfortable, but nice enough to show he'd put thought into it. He finally settled on an Italian place in Midtown that had good reviews and reasonable prices. He was about to close his laptop when a message popped up from Claire. Thanks again for today. The apartment looks amazing. Also, Marcus told me about your date. I'm really happy for you. You deserve all the good things. Ryan typed back. Thanks. How's the first night in the new place? A little lonely, but good. I keep walking around touching the walls like I can't believe they're mine. That's not weird at all. Shut up. I'm having a moment. Ryan smiled at his screen. Enjoy your moment. Talk tomorrow. Night, Ryan. He closed the laptop and looked around his own apartment. It was smaller than Claire's new place, less impressive, filled with Emma's chaos and his functional furniture. But it was home. And for the first time in a long time, Ryan felt like maybe that was enough to build on rather than just enough to survive in. The week crawled toward Friday with agonizing slowness. Emma reminded him approximately 17 times that he had a date, offering increasingly specific fashion advice. Marcus texted him daily with terrible dating tips that Ryan ignored. Even his mother called Wednesday night to make sure he was still going through with it. I'm going, Mom. I'm not backing out. Good, because if you cancel on that poor woman, I'm going to be very disappointed. The pressure is really helping my nerves, thank you. Diane laughed. You're going to be fine. Just be yourself. That's more than enough. Friday finally arrived. Ryan dropped Emma at Marcus and Sarah's place for the evening, enduring both of their enthusiastic encouragement and Sarah's insistence that he text her details later. Then he drove home, changed into the outfit Emma had laid out for him, dark jeans and a button-down she'd declared grown up but not trying too hard, and headed to meet Karen. The restaurant was perfect. Not too crowded, warm lighting, quiet enough to have a real conversation. Karen was already there, wearing a blue dress that brought out her eyes, her hair down for the first time since Ryan had met her. You look great, he said, meaning it. So do you. Is that shirt new? No, my daughter just has better fashion sense than I do. Karen laughed and they were off, falling into the same easy conversation from the coffee date, but deeper now, more personal. She told him about her divorce, about the relief of leaving a marriage that had been wrong for years, about rebuilding her life as a single mother. Ryan shared his own story about Vanessa's abandonment, about learning to be a father alone, about the years he'd spent convincing himself that was enough. Do you think it was enough? Karen asked. Or were you just telling yourself that? Ryan considered the question honestly. Both, maybe. It was enough to keep me going, to give me purpose. But I think I was also hiding behind it, using Emma and responsibility as excuses not to risk getting hurt again. That makes sense. After Riley's dad, I did the same thing. Work and parenting became my whole world because that was safer than admitting I was lonely. And now? Now I'm trying to remember that being lonely isn't weakness, it's just human. Karen met his eyes across the table. And maybe finding someone who understands that is worth the risk. They talked through dinner and dessert and coffee after, the restaurant slowly emptying around them until they were the last table left. The waiter was too polite to rush them, but Ryan noticed him hovering and took the hint. We should probably go, he said reluctantly. They walked to the parking lot slowly, neither quite ready for the evening to end. Karen's car was parked near the back, under a streetlight that cast everything in warm yellow glow. I had a really good time, Karen said. Like, surprisingly good. I was worried it would be awkward or forced, but this felt natural. It did. Ryan found himself stepping closer without consciously deciding to. Can I see you again? I'd like that. Maybe something with the kids next time? Riley keeps asking about Emma, and I think she'd be excited to hang out. Emma would love that. She's been asking when she gets to meet you properly. Karen smiled and leaned in, pressing a soft kiss to Ryan's cheek. Text me this week, and we'll plan something. Ryan nodded, suddenly unable to form words. Karen got in her car and drove away with a wave, leaving Ryan standing in the parking lot feeling like the ground had shifted beneath his feet. He picked up Emma from Marcus's place in a daze, barely registering Marcus's knowing grin or Sarah's excited questions. Emma fell asleep on the drive home, exhausted from playing with Marcus and Sarah's neighbor's dog all evening. Ryan carried her inside, tucked her into bed, and retreated to his own room. His phone buzzed with a text from Karen. Made it home safe. Tonight was perfect. Sweet dreams. He replied, Same. Sleep well. Then another message, this time from his mother. Well? It was good, Mom. Really good. I told you so. Now don't mess it up. Ryan laughed and set his phone aside. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, processing the evening. 2 weeks ago, he'd been convinced his life was full enough, that wanting more was selfish, that the walls he'd built were protection rather than prison. Now those walls were crumbling, not dramatically but steadily, brick by brick. And instead of feeling exposed, Ryan felt like he could finally breathe. The following weeks unfolded with a rhythm Ryan hadn't experienced in years. Work continued, Emma's schedule remained chaotic, but threaded through the familiar routines was something new. Text messages from Karen that made him smile at random moments, plans for weekend activities that included both kids, the tentative but growing sense that he was building something real. Their third date was a Saturday afternoon at the zoo with Emma and Riley. Ryan had been nervous about introducing the girls, worried about how Emma might react to sharing his attention, but his daughter surprised him by immediately bonding with Riley over their shared obsession with dolphins. The two of them raced from exhibit to exhibit, while Ryan and Karen followed at a more reasonable pace, their hands brushing occasionally in a way that felt both accidental and deliberate. They're going to be best friends by the end of this, Karen observed, watching the girls press their faces against the glass of the penguin habitat. Is that good or bad? Probably both, but I'll take it. She glanced at him sideways. This is going well, right? I'm not imagining it? You're not imagining it. Ryan caught her hand properly this time, lacing their fingers together. This is really good. Emma noticed and raised her eyebrows dramatically, which made Riley giggle, but she didn't say anything, just gave Ryan a thumbs up when Karen wasn't looking. That night, after they'd dropped Karen and Riley at their place and driven home, Emma was unusually quiet during dinner. What's on your mind? Ryan asked, watching her push pasta around her plate. Do you like Karen? Like, really like her? Ryan set down his fork. Yeah, I do. Is that okay with you? I guess. She's nice, and Riley's cool. Emma looked up, her expression serious. But you're not going to forget about me, right? Like, you're still going to be my dad first? Ryan's heart clenched. He moved around the table and crouched beside her chair. Emma, listen to me. You are the most important person in my world. That will never change, no matter who else is in my life. Karen doesn't replace you. Nobody could replace you. Promise? I promise. If at any point this feels wrong to you, you tell me. Your happiness matters more than anything. Emma considered this, then nodded. Okay, but I still get to tell her off if she's mean to you. Deal. Ryan hugged her tight. I love you, kiddo. Love you too, Dad. The next morning, Ryan was installing cabinet hardware in a client's kitchen when Marcus called. You busy? Working. What's up? I'm asking Sarah to move in, tonight. I wanted to give you a heads up in case I completely screw it up and need somewhere to hide. Ryan smiled, tightening a screw. You're not going to screw it up. She's crazy about you. Yeah, but what if it's too soon? What if she thinks I'm rushing things? Marcus, you've been together almost 6 months and you're both in your 30s. You're not rushing anything. You're just ready. A pause. When did you become the relationship expert? When I started actually having one. Ryan stepped back to check the alignment of the cabinet door. You've got this, brother. Trust yourself. Thanks, man. That actually helps. Marcus hesitated. And hey, how are things with Karen? Emma handling it okay? Better than I expected. They had a talk last night and she gave her approval, with the caveat that she reserves the right to defend my honor if necessary. Marcus laughed. That's my goddaughter. Listen, we're having people over next weekend. Barbecue at Sarah's place. You should bring Karen and the girls. Let her meet the whole crew properly. Ryan's stomach flipped. Meeting the extended friend group felt significant, like crossing some invisible threshold into real relationship territory. But he found himself saying yes anyway. That evening, Marcus sent a group text with a photo of Sarah's hand wearing an engagement ring and the message, she said yes, I'm the luckiest man alive. The responses flooded in immediately. Congratulations from everyone, heart emojis from Sarah's friends, Claire sending a string of celebration gifs. Ryan added his own message of genuine happiness, then called Marcus directly. Congratulations, I'm really happy for you guys. Thanks. I was terrified she'd say it was too fast, but she just started crying and said she was wondering when I'd ask. Marcus sounded breathless with joy. Ryan, I didn't know it could be like this. Just wanting someone's happiness more than your own, wanting to build a whole life around making sure they're okay. You deserve this, Marcus. Both of you do. So do you, man. With Karen, I see the way you look when you talk about her. That's real. After they hung up, Ryan sat on his couch processing the news. His best friend was getting married. Claire had her own apartment and was rebuilding her confidence. And Ryan himself was dating someone who made him laugh and didn't run screaming from the complications of single parenthood. 3 weeks ago, his life had been static, predictable, safe. Now everything was in motion, and instead of being terrifying, it felt like finally waking up after a long sleep. The barbecue the following Saturday was exactly as chaotic as Ryan expected. Sarah's backyard was full of people, Marcus's friends from high school, Sarah's art world connections, neighbors who'd been invited because Sarah believed in community. Claire showed up with a guy she introduced as just a friend, but who clearly wanted to be more, based on how he looked at her. Ryan arrived with Karen and the girls, who immediately abandoned the adults to join the other kids playing in the corner of the yard. Karen took his hand as they navigated through the crowd, and Ryan felt eyes tracking them with curiosity. You okay? Karen asked quietly. Yeah. Just not used to being the center of attention. We could make out dramatically and really give them something to talk about. Ryan laughed, the tension breaking. Let's save that for date 4. They found Marcus manning the grill, wearing a ridiculous apron that said Grill Master Supreme, and looking happier than Ryan had ever seen him. Sarah was beside him, her engagement ring catching the sunlight, directing traffic with the ease of someone who loved hosting. There they are! Marcus abandoned the grill to pull Ryan into a hug, then turned to Karen. You must be Karen. I've heard a lot about you. All good things, I hope. Mostly. Ryan did mention you have questionable taste in coffee orders. Karen laughed. Iced lattes are perfectly respectable. That's what someone with questionable taste would say. Marcus grinned and gestured them toward the drinks. Help yourselves. Food should be ready in about 20 minutes. Claire appeared from the kitchen carrying a bowl of pasta salad. She spotted Ryan and Karen and made her way over. Hey, you must be Karen. I'm Claire, Marcus's sister and Ryan's friend who made things spectacularly awkward a few weeks ago. Karen blinked, clearly not sure how to respond to that level of honesty. Ryan jumped in. Claire's exaggerating, barely awkward at all. I'm really not, but we can pretend if it makes you feel better. Claire set down the bowl and extended her hand to Karen. Seriously, though, it's nice to meet you. Ryan's been different lately, lighter. That's a good thing. Thanks, I think. Karen shook her hand, looking slightly overwhelmed. Come on, I'll introduce you to some of the less intimidating people. Claire steered Karen toward a group of Sarah's friends, leaving Ryan alone for a moment. He wandered to the edge of the yard where Emma and Riley were playing some elaborate game involving a frisbee and rules only they understood. Emma was laughing, her whole face lit up with joy, and Ryan felt something settle in his chest. This was what he'd been afraid of, that opening himself up to someone new would somehow diminish what he had with Emma. But watching her now, happy and secure, he realized his fears had been backwards. Emma didn't need him to be isolated and lonely. She needed him to be whole. She's great with kids. Sarah appeared beside him, following his gaze. Karen, I mean. Riley clearly adores her, and Emma seems comfortable. Yeah, I'm still waiting for the other shoe to drop, honestly. What if there is no other shoe? What if this is just good? Ryan turned to look at Sarah. Is that what it's like with Marcus? Just good? It's terrifying and wonderful, and sometimes I wake up at 3 a.m. convinced I'm going to mess it up somehow. But then I remember that we chose each other knowing all the complicated parts, and that makes it real. Sarah smiled. Marcus told me about what happened with Claire. What you did. Ryan tensed. He wasn't supposed to. Relax. He didn't give me details, just enough to explain why he was so upset that one day. But it told me something important about you. Sarah turned to face him fully. You could have taken advantage of a situation and didn't. You chose integrity over gratification. That's rare, Ryan. Karen's lucky to be dating someone who actually has a moral compass. I just did what felt right. Exactly. That's who you are. Sarah squeezed his arm. Don't sabotage this because you're afraid of being happy. You deserve good things too. The afternoon unfolded in laughter and food and the easy chaos of people who genuinely enjoyed each other's company. Ryan found himself relaxing into it, his hand finding Karen's naturally, their shoulders bumping as they sat together watching the kids play. Claire caught his eye at one point and mouthed, I like her, which made Ryan smile. As the sun started setting and people began filtering out, Marcus pulled Ryan aside. Thanks for coming, and for bringing Karen. She fits. Yeah, she does. Ryan glanced over to where Karen was helping Sarah clean up despite Sarah's protests. I'm trying not to overthink it. Good. Because you have a terrible habit of overthinking everything. Marcus's expression turned more serious. I wanted to ask you something. When Sarah and I get married, probably next spring, we're thinking small ceremony, just close friends and family. Would you be my best man? Ryan felt emotion clog his throat. Of course, I'd be honored. And maybe Karen could come as your date? If you guys are still together by then, which I'm guessing you will be. One step at a time, Marcus, says the guy who looks at her like she hung the moon. Ryan didn't bother denying it. The drive home was quiet, Emma asleep in the back seat, the radio playing softly. Karen had followed in her own car with Riley, but they'd made plans to see each other Tuesday evening while the kids were at their respective activities. That night, after Emma was in bed, Ryan's phone rang. His mother. How was the barbecue? Good. Really good, actually. Karen met everyone and didn't run screaming. Why would she run screaming? You're a catch. You're biased. I'm your mother. I'm allowed to be biased. Diane's tone softened. I'm proud of you, baby, for letting yourself try. I know that wasn't easy. It's still not easy. I keep waiting for something to go wrong. That's called being human. But Ryan, here's what I've learned. You can't protect yourself from pain by refusing to feel joy. All you do is make yourself smaller. Karen seems like a good woman. Emma likes her. Your friends approve. At some point, you have to trust that maybe this is just what it looks like. something good that you deserve. After they hung up, Ryan lay in bed thinking about his mother's words. For 9 years, he'd been protecting himself from the possibility of being abandoned again. He'd built walls so high that nothing could get in to hurt him, but nothing could get in to help him either. Claire had tried to use him as a shortcut to feeling whole, and he'd recognized it because he'd been doing the same thing, using isolation as a shortcut to feeling safe. But safety wasn't the same as healing, and protection wasn't the same as peace. The next few weeks passed in a blur of normalcy that felt extraordinary simply because Ryan had gone so long without it. Dinner dates with Karen while the girls had sleepovers at each other's houses. Coffee on Sunday mornings at the park while Emma and Riley chased each other around the playground. Karen coming to one of Emma's swim meets and cheering louder than anyone. Ryan meeting Karen's parents over brunch and surviving their polite interrogation about his intentions. And slowly, carefully, the conversation started shifting from "we're dating" to "we're building something together." It was Karen who brought it up first on a Thursday evening in late August. They were sitting on her back porch after the girls had gone to bed, drinking wine and watching fireflies. "I need to tell you something," Karen said, her voice careful. Ryan's stomach dropped. Here it was. The other shoe. "Okay." Riley's dad wants to move to Portland for a job opportunity. He's asking if I'd consider letting Riley go with him. Shared custody, summers here, holidays split. He'd still be her dad, just long distance. "What do you want to do?" "I don't know. Part of me thinks Riley would benefit from having her dad more present, even if it means less time with me. But the other part..." Karen set down her wine glass. "The other part knows that if I let her go, you and I become more complicated. Because right now we're two single parents dating, but if Riley's gone half the year, I'm just someone dating a single parent, and I don't know if that's fair to ask of you." Ryan took her hand. "Karen, look at me. I'm not dating you because our situations match. I'm dating you because I like who I am when I'm with you, because you make me laugh and you're patient with Emma and you don't expect me to be perfect. Riley being in Portland or here doesn't change any of that." "You're sure?" "I'm sure. We'll figure it out." That's what people do when they care about each other. Karen's eyes filled with tears. "I really care about you, Ryan. More than I expected to when I sent that first text. I really care about you too." She leaned in and kissed him, slow and sweet and full of promise. When they pulled apart, Karen rested her forehead against his. "I told Riley's dad I'd think about it. Give me a few weeks to figure out what's best for her. Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere." And he meant it. Whatever happened with Riley, whatever Karen decided, Ryan was in this. Not because it was easy or convenient, but because Karen was worth staying for. September arrived with cooler weather and the start of the school year. Emma was nervous about fourth grade until she found out Riley would be in her class, at which point her anxiety transformed into excitement. Ryan signed permission slips and bought school supplies and tried not to think about how fast his daughter was growing up. Claire stopped by one Saturday morning with coffee and pastries, settling into Ryan's small kitchen like she'd done it 100 times before. "I wanted to thank you," she said without preamble. "For what?" "For that night in the workshop. For saying no. For treating me like I was worth more than what I was offering." Claire wrapped her hands around her coffee cup. "I've been in therapy consistently now for 2 months. I'm dating someone. Nothing serious yet, but he's kind and patient and actually listens when I talk. And I realized none of that would have happened if you'd said yes that night. You would have figured it out eventually. Maybe, but you gave me a shortcut to the truth. That my worth isn't conditional on whether someone wants me. That healing doesn't come from external validation. That I deserve to be chosen thoughtfully, not just accepted desperately." She met his eyes. "So thank you for being the kind of man who does the hard right thing instead of the easy wrong thing." Ryan felt his throat tighten. "You're welcome. And Claire, I'm really proud of how far you've come. Marcus said the same thing last week. Apparently, I have good men in my life who actually give a damn." She smiled. "Speaking of which, how are things with Karen?" "Good. Complicated, but good. Her ex wants to move to Portland and take Riley part-time." "How do you feel about that?" "Honestly, sad for Karen, because I know it's tearing her apart. But we'll figure it out. That's what you do when you care about someone." Look at you being all emotionally mature. Claire's smile was genuine. I like Karen. She's good for you. Don't mess it up. Why does everyone keep saying that? Because we all want you to be happy, and you have a tendency to self-sabotage when things are going well. Ryan couldn't argue with that. October brought Marcus and Sarah's engagement party, a backyard affair with string lights and Sarah's art friends mingling with Marcus's contractor buddies in a surprisingly harmonious blend. Ryan stood with Karen on the edge of the crowd, watching his best friend dance with his fiancée, both of them glowing with happiness. That'll be us someday, Karen said softly. Ryan looked at her surprised. Yeah? Yeah, I mean, not tomorrow, but eventually, if you want that. I do want that. The words came easier than Ryan expected. With you, when we're ready. Karen squeezed his hand and they stayed like that, watching their friends celebrate while quietly acknowledging their own future taking shape. Later that night, after dropping Karen and Riley home, Ryan found Emma still awake, reading in bed. You're supposed to be asleep, he said from the doorway. I was waiting for you. Did you have fun? I did. Ryan sat on the edge of her bed. Can I ask you something serious? Emma set down her book, suddenly alert. Okay. How would you feel if, someday down the line, Karen and I got married, and maybe we all lived together, you and me and Karen and Riley? Emma was quiet for a long moment, her face scrunched in concentration. Would you still be my dad? Like, just mine? Always. Nothing and nobody could change that. And would we still have our Saturday morning pancakes? Just us? Absolutely. Some things are sacred. Emma nodded slowly. Then I think it would be okay. Riley's cool, and Karen makes you happy. That's important. Ryan pulled her into a hug, overwhelmed by his daughter's wisdom and generosity. When did you get so smart? I've always been smart, you just weren't paying attention. He laughed and kissed her forehead. Go to sleep, wise guy. Love you, Dad. Love you too, Em. November arrived with bare trees and early darkness, and Karen made her decision about Riley. She would let her daughter spend the school year in Portland with her father, returning for summers and holidays. It was the hardest decision Ryan had watched someone make, but Karen did it with grace and certainty that it was what Riley needed. She deserves to really know her dad, Karen said, crying in Ryan's arms the night after she'd told Riley. Not just weekend visits and awkward dinners, she deserves the daily stuff, the homework help and goodnight kisses, and just being present. You're an amazing mother, Ryan told her. Riley's going to understand that someday. I hope so. Right now she's just excited about the adventure. Riley left for Portland the week before Thanksgiving. Karen was devastated but holding it together, and Ryan made sure to be there, not fixing it or making it better, just being present while she grieved the daily presence of her daughter. They spent Thanksgiving together, Ryan and Emma and Karen, plus Marcus and Sarah and Claire. It wasn't traditional, but it was family, chosen and built and real. Around the table, sharing food and stories and laughter, Ryan realized this was what he'd been missing all those years. Not romance specifically, but connection, community, the willingness to let people in even when it was scary. December brought Christmas preparations, and Karen asking if she could spend the holiday with Ryan and Emma since Riley would be with her father in Portland. Emma enthusiastically agreed, already planning what presents to get for Karen. On Christmas Eve, after Emma had finally fallen asleep, Ryan and Karen sat by the small tree in his living room, drinking hot chocolate and watching the lights blink. I have something for you, Karen said, pulling a small wrapped box from her purse. It's not much, but I wanted you to have it. Ryan opened it to find a simple leather bracelet with a small silver charm, a compass. So you always know where home is, Karen said softly, no matter where life takes you. Ryan felt his eyes burn. He pulled her close, kissing her with all the emotion he couldn't put into words. When they separated, he reached under the couch and retrieved his own wrapped present. Karen opened it to reveal a framed photograph from Marcus's engagement party. The two of them caught mid-laugh, Karen's head on Ryan's shoulder, both looking genuinely, completely happy. So you remember that we're building something real, Ryan said, even on the hard days when Riley's far away and everything feels complicated. Karen started crying, happy tears this time. I love you, Ryan Miller. I love you too, Karen. They'd both been so careful with those words, waiting for the right moment, not wanting to rush. But sitting there on Christmas Eve with the tree lights glowing and Emma asleep down the hall and the future stretching out before them, it felt exactly right. January brought a new year and new rhythms. Ryan and Karen officially decided to date exclusively with the intention of seeing where it led. Emma adjusted to fourth grade and FaceTimed with Riley every week, their friendship surviving the distance. Marcus and Sarah set their wedding date for April, and Ryan started working on a handcrafted gift, a jewelry box made from reclaimed wood, every joint perfect, every surface smooth. On a cold Saturday in February, almost 6 months after that night in Marcus's workshop, Claire stopped by Ryan's place unannounced. She had someone with her, the guy she'd been dating, whose name was David and who looked appropriately nervous to meet her brother's best friend. "We're getting serious," Claire announced, "and I wanted you to meet him properly, since your opinion matters." Ryan shook David's hand, noting the firm grip and direct eye contact. They talked for an hour about David's work as a high school teacher, his love of hiking, his own journey through therapy after a difficult divorce. Ryan watched how he looked at Claire, with genuine interest and respect, like she was someone worth knowing deeply. After they left, Emma appeared from her room where she'd been doing homework. "He's good for her, right?" she asked. "Yeah, kiddo, I think he is." "Good. Aunt Claire deserves someone nice." Ryan smiled at the casual way Emma had claimed Claire as family, because that's what they all were now. Marcus and Sarah, Claire and David, Karen and Riley, Emma and Ryan. Not connected by blood necessarily, but by choice and commitment and showing up for each other when it mattered. March brought warmer weather, and Ryan and Karen's first major disagreement, something stupid about scheduling that spiraled into both of them being tired and stressed and taking it out on each other. They said things they didn't mean, and Karen left angry. Ryan stewed for an hour before calling Marcus. "I think I messed up," he admitted. "What happened?" Ryan explained, and Marcus listened without judgment. "So go apologize," Marcus said simply. "That's what adults do. You say you're sorry, you talk it through, you do better next time. What if she doesn't want to talk? Then you wait until she's ready and you try again." Ryan, relationships aren't perfect. They're just two imperfect people deciding they're worth the work. Are you and Karen worth the work? Yeah, absolutely. Then do the work. Ryan drove to Karen's place and knocked on the door. When she answered, her eyes were red from crying. "I'm sorry," he said immediately. "I was stressed about a deadline, and I took it out on you instead of communicating like an adult. That was wrong." "I'm sorry, too. I was feeling guilty about Riley being so far away, and I projected that onto you." Karen stepped aside. "Come in. Let's talk properly." They spent 2 hours on her couch working through the fight, unpacking what was really bothering each of them, learning how to communicate better. It wasn't easy or comfortable, but when they were done, Ryan felt closer to her than he had before the argument. "We're going to have more fights," Karen said. "That's normal." "I know, but as long as we keep choosing each other after the fights, we'll be okay." Deal. April arrived with cherry blossoms and Marcus's wedding. Ryan stood beside his best friend in a rented tux, watching Sarah walk down the aisle in her grandmother's restored wedding dress. Emma was a flower girl, taking her job very seriously. Karen sat in the third row next to Claire and David, smiling at Ryan every time he caught her eye. The ceremony was simple and heartfelt. Marcus cried during his vows, and Sarah laughed through hers, and when they kissed, the whole room erupted in cheers. At the reception, Ryan gave a toast about friendship and loyalty, and finding people who made you want to be better. Marcus hugged him so hard Ryan could barely breathe. "Thank you," Marcus said, "for everything, for being there through all of it." That's what family does. Later, while dancing with Karen to some slow song the DJ was playing, Ryan looked around the room. Emma dancing with Riley, who'd flown in for the wedding, Claire slow dancing with David, looking peaceful in a way Ryan had never seen before. Marcus and Sarah lost in their own world, swaying together like they were the only two people in the room. "What are you thinking about?" Karen asked. "How different everything is from a year ago. How much better." "Do you regret any of it? The hard parts, I mean." Ryan thought about that night in the workshop, about Claire's desperate question, about the choice he'd made. about all the choices that had come after, to try dating, to let Karen in, to risk being hurt again. No, he said honestly. The hard parts made the good parts possible. I wouldn't change any of it. Not even the parts where I was annoying about scheduling? Especially not those parts. They taught me how to apologize properly. Karen laughed and rested her head on his shoulder. I love you, you know. I know. I love you too. They danced until Emma appeared and insisted on cutting in, forcing Ryan to dance with his daughter while Karen took pictures. Later, Riley joined them and they danced as a group, all four of them laughing and terrible at coordinating their movements. As the evening wound down and guests started leaving, Ryan found himself standing outside with Marcus, both of them loosening their ties and breathing in the cool spring air. This is what I wanted for you, Marcus said. Watching you dance with Karen and the girls. Seeing you actually happy instead of just functional. I didn't know I wasn't happy before. I thought I was doing fine. You were surviving. That's different. Marcus clapped him on the shoulder. Thanks for being my best man, and for being the kind of friend who does the right thing even when it's hard. Always, brother. Always. 6 months later, on a crisp October evening, Ryan stood in Karen's living room with a small velvet box in his pocket. Emma knew what he was planning. He'd asked her permission first, because that felt important. She'd cried and hugged him and said yes before he'd even finished the question. Karen came home from work tired but happy, kicking off her shoes and dropping her bag by the door. Riley had come home for fall break and was at Marcus and Sarah's place for the evening, giving Ryan and Karen rare time alone. Long day? He asked. Exhausting. Tell me something good. Ryan took a breath, his heart hammering. I love you. I love the way you make coffee for me, even though you think my cappuccino order is pretentious. I love how you never make me feel guilty for putting Emma first. I love how you turned our first fight into something that made us stronger instead of breaking us apart. I love how you're figuring out long-distance parenting with Riley with so much grace and honesty. I love that you make me want to be brave instead of safe. Karen's eyes widened. Ryan, he dropped to one knee, pulling out the ring. I know it's only been a year. I know we still have things to figure out with Riley's situation and combining our lives and a million other complicated details. But I also know that I want to figure all of it out with you. So Karen, will you marry me? Karen was crying before he finished, nodding so hard she couldn't speak. Finally, she managed, Yes, yes, of course, yes. Ryan slipped the ring on her finger and stood, pulling her into a kiss that tasted like tears and joy and promise. When they separated, Karen laughed through her crying. Emma knows, doesn't she? She helped me pick the ring, had very specific opinions about diamonds. Of course she did. Karen looked at the ring, simple and perfect. When should we tell her and Riley officially? Emma's waiting at Marcus's place with Riley. I figured we could head over there and tell them together. You planned this whole thing. I had help. Marcus and Sarah are in on it too, and Claire, and my mom. Actually, pretty much everyone knew except you. Karen laughed harder. I can't believe I didn't suspect anything. They drove to Marcus and Sarah's place hand in hand, Karen still crying happy tears, both of them giddy with the weight of the decision they'd just made. When they walked in, Emma and Riley were playing a board game in the living room, while Marcus and Sarah pretended to be casual in the kitchen. Emma looked up, saw Karen's face, and screamed. She said yes! Riley jumped up. Wait, what? You proposed? Can I see the ring? The girls mobbed them, examining the ring and hugging both of them and talking over each other with excitement. Marcus appeared with champagne while Sarah pulled out sparkling cider for the girls. Claire and David showed up minutes later, clearly having been on standby. A toast, Marcus said, raising his glass, to Ryan and Karen, who proved that good things come to people brave enough to try, to Emma and Riley, who are getting an expanded family, and to all of us for showing up for each other through the complicated parts. They clinked glasses and drank, and Emma insisted on making her own toast about how her dad was the best, and Karen was cool, and Riley was her sister now, and everyone better be nice at the wedding or they'd answer to her. Later, after the celebration died down and Emma had fallen asleep on Sarah's couch, Ryan stood outside with Karen looking at the stars. I'm terrified, Karen admitted. Not of marrying you, but of messing it up, of not being enough. I'm terrified too, but I think that's okay. We'll mess up sometimes. We'll have more fights and complicated decisions and moments where we have no idea what we're doing, but we'll do it together. Together, Karen echoed, leaning into him. Ryan thought about that night in Marcus's workshop, about Claire asking a question he'd had to refuse, about how saying no to the wrong thing had opened the door for the right thing, about how choosing integrity over impulse had led him here, to this moment, this woman, this life he was building one brave choice at a time. He'd spent 9 years protecting himself from pain, convinced that safety was the same as happiness. But real happiness, he'd learned, came from being willing to risk the pain, from letting people in even when they might hurt you, from choosing connection over isolation and love over fear. Thank you, he said to Karen. For what? For texting me that first time. For taking a chance on a guy who was clearly terrified of dating. For being patient while I figured out that I deserved good things too. You made it pretty easy, Karen said. Being the kind of man who treats people with actual kindness and integrity. That's not as common as it should be. They stood there under the stars, two people who'd been broken in different ways by different people, who'd found each other through swimming lessons and coffee dates and the willingness to keep trying. Around them, their chosen family celebrated inside. Marcus and Sarah planning double dates, Claire showing David photos from her new design project, Emma and Riley already planning how they'd decorate their shared room when the families moved in together. It wasn't the life Ryan had imagined when Vanessa walked out 9 years ago. It was better, more complicated, more messy, more real, built not on the absence of difficulty, but on the commitment to face difficulty together. And as Karen's hand found his in the darkness, Ryan understood that this was what love actually looked like. Not perfect, not easy, but chosen deliberately and renewed daily. The kind of love that saw all of you and decided you were worth the work. The kind of love that made you want to be better while accepting who you were right now. The kind of love worth waiting for. Worth choosing. Worth building a life around. And finally, after years of just surviving, Ryan was ready to really live.